Thank you, Len. Just taking us through some housekeeping here. Can everyone see the slideshow?
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So welcome everyone to the December 13th meeting of the Regional Transportation Advisory Council. I will read our notice of non-discrimination. You are invited to participate in our transportation planning process, regardless of your race, color, national origin, including limited English proficiency, religion, creed, gender, ancestry, ethnicity, disability, age, sex, sexual orientation, gender identity or expression, veteran status or background. You can read the full notice of your rights and protections at www.bostonmpo.org/mpo_non_discrimination. This meeting is accessible to people with disabilities. Zoom products are compliant with exceptions with the following standards: Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1 Level AA standards and revised Section 508 standards. If you require any additional accommodations in order to participate fully in this meeting, please contact me, Stella Jordan of MPO staff at sjordan@ctps.org or at 857-702-3675. All participants will join the meeting with muted microphones. Please rename yourself to include your first name, last name, and affiliation if you haven't already done so. You may mute and unmute yourselves during this meeting, but please do remain muted unless you're actively speaking. And to participate in the discussion, you can select the raised hand function, either by clicking on the participants button at the bottom of the screen and a window will pop up with a raised hand button at the bottom, or via the reactions button in the toolbar and the chair will call on you. And if you're joining us by phone, you can use *9 to raise your hand. If you have any technical difficulties, please contact me, Stella Jordan, via the Zoom chat box at sjordan@ctps.org or at 857-702-3675. I will pass it back over to you, Len, for introductions.
Thank you, Stella. So we have a small enough attendance, that we can do introductions. So I will call on folks means I see in the participants list. So David Hong. You can just say a word, a sentence or two about yourself.
Sure. David Hong, manager of MPO activities. And I am originally from Toronto and been here in the Boston region for 2.5 years. And relatively new to the role, but been in the role for the past 2 months or so. Very nice to meet you. And I will pass it back, Len.
Thank you, David. I'm Erin McGuire.
Good afternoon. My name is Erin McGuire. I am an assistant planner with the MPO. Thank you.
Thank you, Erin. Shruleka Murthy.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shruleka Murthy, and I manage the Unified Planning Work Program for the staff.
Thank you, Shruleka. Ethan LaPointe.
Hey, everybody. I'm Ethan LaPointe. I'm the Transportation Improvement Program Manager with the Boston Region MPO.
Thank you, Ethan. Franny Osman.
Hi, I'm Franny Osman. I'm Vice Chair of RTAC. I come from Acton, Mass.
Thank you, Franny. Apologies for me, I'm probably not going to get his name correct. Gia Wan.
Yeah, you've got it. Thanks, Len. Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Gia, and I'm the Public Engagement Coordinator.
Thank you, Gia. Yeah, thank you, Gia. Now, just because I got it right this time doesn't mean I get it right the next time. That's how my brain works. So, John McQueen.
John McQueen, Massachusetts.
Thanks, John. And Logan Casey.
Hey everyone, Logan Casey. I'm the Capital Programming Planner with the Boston MPO.
Thank you, Logan. Owen McDonald.
Owen McDonald, Town of Weymouth.
Thank you, Owen. Sam Taylor.
Hey everybody, Sam Taylor, Manager of Planning and Performance-Based Planning and Programming.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. And Sean Rourke.
Hi, Sean Rourke. I'm the manager of the Communications and Engagement Group at the Boston Region MPO.
Thank you. And Zach Kaufman.
Hi, I'm a planner with the Baltimore Metropolitan Council, listening in, particularly interested in the long-range transportation plan needs assessment work.
Great, excellent. Thanks for joining us. I just want to say before we start, that we are going to switch the UPWP input with the long range the needs assessment, just so that in case the discussion about the needs assessment runs long, for one, and two, if people aren't that interested in it, then they can, leave the meeting early. I'll just say that if we get to a point where we need a quorum in order to end the meeting, then we'll just end the formal part of the meeting then and continue discussion. But we won't be voting on anything. So quorum's not really, big. Well, I guess we'll vote on minutes if we have a quorum. That would be about it. So with that, I will introduce Sam Taylor, who is the manager of the performance-based planning programming, and he will give a quick little intro, and then we will give him our input on the dashboard. So Sam, I think you're talking, and it's very low, man. I can't really hear you.
All right, how about now?
Yeah.
Great. All right. Thanks, Len.
Sure.
Hi, everybody. My name's Sam Taylor. I'm here to continue the conversation from October about the overhaul of the MPO's performance dashboard, and also to ask for your feedback and guidance about how this dashboard could be useful to this committee, the MPO board, other stakeholders, and hopefully the region at large. So I will move quickly through the few slides that I have so that we have as much time as possible for discussion. Next slide, please. So just a brief primer on what performance-based planning and programming is, especially since this is not a program you hear about or hear from all that often. In this presentation, I will cover the underlying purpose and vision for the creation of a new performance dashboard, and then we will continue our conversation from 2 meetings ago and allow our council members to provide staff with feedback on the inclusion of certain metrics, certain interfaces, and other concepts that you might like to see in the new dashboard. Next slide, please. So what is performance-based planning and programming? This is basically a process that all state DOTs and MPOs are required to do. And what this essentially means is that all multimodal transportation systems must use metrics to guide their planning decisions. Performance-based planning and programming process includes 3 phases. That's planning, investing, and monitoring and evaluating. US DOT requires MPOs to establish performance targets in 6 key policy areas, and MPOs are to report on progress toward achieving those targets. Please note these performance targets are the ones that the board adopts each winter, with some being annual targets, or in some cases 2 or 4-year targets. Really the dashboard falls under the monitoring and evaluating element of the process. Next slide, please. So a few considerations about the dashboard. Most of the data shown in the old dashboard has not been updated since 2019, or in many cases even earlier. There's a desire for a simpler dashboard that is organized by the 6 federally required performance target areas, which I just mentioned. And that is also shared by the feds, as they were actually ones who suggested that we organize our performance dashboard in this manner during our last certification review. Next slide, please. So that brings us to discussion. I'm going to read the questions on the slide. But in addition to those, please keep in mind, basically, if there's any sort of data or measurable items that you all wish that you could see outside of the performance targets that we are required to report on, such as metrics on congestion or safety, which I know were mentioned during the last time in October when we started this discussion. Please feel free to raise those. But I think pretty much what we're here to discuss today can really fall under these 4 questions, which are how important are certain features such as interactive charts to your understanding of the metrics shown? What would be most helpful to the advisory council and other MPO stakeholders in a new dashboard? And then, of course, from 2 meetings ago in October, there was previous discussion about presenting linkages to MPO actions and other events, either within or outside our control, alongside performance and targets. How could you envision or recommend displaying such info? I believe it was John McQueen who brought that point forward last time. And are there other ways that you could see a dashboard being a resource that is a bit more creative and interactive than just a set of charts and figures that report on performance? So Len, I'll turn it back over to you, and hopefully we can move the ball forward from October.
Sure. And I will certainly ask other people who have input and start off first. I have a little list, but actually other people to chime in first. But I have one question I think that might help guide us all. This update, will it be a one-off, or will it be something that can be updated with some regularity, whether that's like once a year or a couple times a year or once every 2 years? Because right now, as I understand it, this one was created by another entity, and there's no updating that. We just need to replace it.
Yes, so this is definitely a resource that we are looking to construct that can be updated, as you said, probably most likely on an annual basis. But this is something that we hope can just be easily refreshed as we plug new metrics in as they're released.
Okay, great, thanks. Yeah, that definitely helps. So input, anyone? If you can just raise your hand electronically, that will help because I can't really see all the squares. Okay, all right. So I will start, and then I'll stop after each one to see if people want to either comment on what I said or some ideas have been generated. So kind of along the lines of what John had suggested last time about presenting linkages to MPO actions and other events. It would be good, if we could see it on this dashboard, completed projects, overlaid. If we're going to have a map, then overlay them on that map. So that when we then mouse over it, and essentially I'm thinking about the current way the dashboard works on some of the metrics. When you mouse over it, you get a bunch of stats, so that we could then see the stats associated with those areas that have those projects. And then of course we want to have a time series, so that we can see what things were like before the project was completed, and when it is completed, and of course then years after the project has been completed. So I would say to the extent we could do that with any elements on the dashboard, that I think would be helpful and insightful. So now I see a hand up, John.
Yeah, hi. Good afternoon, folks.
Good afternoon.
And that number 3 item, yeah, I agree still with with Lynn and myself, I suppose. What I would like to see would be, let's say, the milestones reached or projects completed, and those shown, and with a little added information in terms of how they finished. Were they on budget? Were they on time? If not, show it and show the metric of the margin of difference, and applause if they were on time and below budget.
Yeah. Well, that's an
so John,
I'm sorry, no,
if-
please, Sam.
if
No,
I-
you got Sam.
Yeah,
Yeah.
John, if you could clarify, so you're talking about some sort of maybe map or
Yeah.
interactive tool that sort of evaluates projects themselves, not so much like projects in relation to other I guess performance metrics such as ones in safety or congestion or air quality or
Well,
others. You're saying evaluate
yeah,
the
those,
projects themselves.
yeah, I'd go for the projects themselves because those are going to be the real rubber to the road of actions authorized. And you know, in terms of the overall of congestion, that's kind of too broad. And to drill down and be a little more specific in terms of the programs that have been authorized to deal with congestion. Okay, were any milestones reached? And if so, were they on time, on budget? And because just completing them doesn't necessarily mean that we can all jump up and down and applaud.
Well, that's interesting, John. Yeah, I would say we could do both.
Yeah.
You are more focused, on the projects as they are, in the process of
Right.
being realized. And certainly, if we want to see the fruits of the projects, we'll have to look afterwards. But I like that, and certainly, I think what we're getting at is that we would like this dashboard to go beyond what the feds want. So we could put on the
Yeah.
front page, this is for the feds. You get your 6 metrics or whatever, and then then there'd be another button like, but here's the really good stuff, and that then gives us all the stuff that is going to come out of this meeting. That I'm just sure is going to have wonderful ideas. But I like that, John, especially the looking at the project. The milestones, but also how did it come in? On budget and whatnot. And I think this kind of feeds in to the tip performance
Right.
evaluation. I forget
Yeah.
what the R is for at this point. Because and I'll say in particular because I've been kind of struggling with the whole amendments issue. Where we generally have to sign off on spending more money on the project. And Ethan was really gracious in helping me understand some stuff last week. And it becomes clear that and if I misspeak, Ethan, please feel free to jump in and correct me. But sometimes we just don't have the full information. At least the full information can't be conveyed to the board. As to what exactly went into the additional money that we need to sign off on. That's knowable and is known. It'd be great if later on that could be presented. It's just for transparency. And I'm sure the folks at MassDOT are analyzing that in order to get a sense of what might happen with other related projects. So I'll stop talking and turn to Franny.
Yeah, I actually I agree with that previous discussion part. I wanted to answer to the part about, are there other ways you could see a dashboard being a resource that's more creative? I actually am not really familiar in general in my life with this concept of dashboard. I think of a dashboard as something that tells you where you're going, or how you're going, how fast you're going, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm not totally all on board with the whole dashboard model, but assuming it's a set of charts and figures that helps show how things are going, I was thinking, what if there were actually more qualitative reports on projects in the way of like very short videos of location and of people talking about the need, some really relatable sort of recording of the pre-work or pre-study, whatever it is, to the post. And you talk to the same people, or it really humanize the activities that are being done. I was just thinking that could be more interesting than just the charts that show, you know, traffic flow just much better or whatever. I mean, just to sort of help people grasp the work that's being done and the human connection to it.
Franny, thank you for that input. You know,
But is the dashboard something that I should have been studying and seeing and have a concept of like going to the MPO website and seeing the dashboard, or is this just a way of describing the evaluation data of projects?
well, the dashboard does exist on the MPO's website. I mean, whether you should have or shouldn't be, I leave that up to you to conclude. You know, as to be what you get out of discussion. I will say that this probably is the last time that you can make input. You know, so if you do decide to go to the dashboard, you know, at some point, and you want to make more input, you can either do it directly to Sam or through myself or Stella. And I'll say like the dashboard, it's just a term that came into vogue. I would say probably 10 years ago, where pretty much any website, you know, that has links to lots of tables and charts is considered a dashboard. So just think of the dashboard as glorified website with lots of data and charts. So does that answer your question about dashboards?
Yes, and I just went to the performance dashboard. And when you say comment, it's the last time that you can comment on the actual results in the dashboard, or do you mean on the design and of the dashboard?
We're talking design at this point.
Okay.
I mean, like, yeah, you know, and what information will be included on it, you know, and so yeah. Okay, you know, so
Great.
Ethan.
Thank you. I just wanted to jump in and say to the point about project-specific data that's included here. So this is, and I'll defer to Sam as far as his vision on this, but this is a separate effort from anything we may end up doing on the tip side, but we would likely use the framework that this establishes to go further to provide additional project level detail through a separate or related tip dashboard in the future. That is a intensive level of work that we're looking to do in the tip program. We don't exactly have a scope for it yet, but we'll eventually circle back on how to kind of bake that in. I will say right now, it is not something that I have on my radar for the next year, but it is a pet project that we're trying to keep on the back burner.
Great. Anything we can do to help you, feed that pet, and take care of it, just let us know. And Sam, I just want to say, look, I realize that probably most of the stuff, especially that I say, is going to be beyond the scope, what you either want to do or can do, but we just put it out there. It helps us think through, what's available, and if nothing else, we're dreaming of what we may get at some point, either on this dashboard or on related dashboards like Ethan has discussed. So, Franny, your hand back up or still up?
Still up.
Okay, no problem. So let's see. Let's mention times. So in terms of measurements, so we talked about what the feds want, but I would say, any metrics that we use, in the process of selecting projects, it would be good, if that could be, included, on the dashboard, because to the extent we want to see before and after effects, then since we generally are selecting our projects based on our metrics / criteria, it would be good to see how they were in the the data that went into us assessing that project. It'd be good to see how that compares afterwards. And then it would be good to see to the extent to which our criteria function in giving us the hopeful results from the study, from the project that is implemented. So there's that. John?
Yeah, again, on the performance-based measures, I think we spend too little time going back and evaluating was something, let's say, a did it perform according to its specs? For instance, let's say the dashboard might have shown that the Green Line extension was completed. No, it's still open. It still has not, finished its real task, and the budget is still running, and it's probably over budget, I guess, from what its second budget was with that project. So it's important because in terms of setting overall budgets for programs or for just, DOT, the budget creep sometimes is caused by the ineffectiveness or the inefficiencies of not reaching or monitoring or staying on top of the goals and accomplishing them within budget. So I think that's very important, and I know we've addressed it with Ethan and Matt Genova and other folks down the line, but I think we still have room to do a little bit more, whether it's post-evaluation or ongoing evaluation, as I guess the Green Line extension would be.
Thanks, John. And I think if you go back and replay what I just said, it may still not make any sense. Or a lot, you may have gotten a little jumbled up there. So Sam, if it wasn't clear, maybe feel free to get back to me. But in short, what I would like to see is the dashboard make it easy for us to do before and after comparisons, so that we don't have to create a study, discrete study in UPWP to get a sense of what happened, what are the results of the work that we've done, and so we have to have a big time span in order to really get a good sense of the effects of a project, because once the project's completed, there may be initial response, which may be muted or may even be exaggerated, but then the response will either settle down, after a number of years, or there be a trend, in one direction or another. And of course, we have life going on, and so it's hard to do the perfect control because you have an environment that's changing that could have effects on the project. But hey, this stuff is complex, but the more measurements we have, the better. And it'd be good if the dashboard could just be a resource that helps us do these before and after analysis, so that's that.
Yes, and Len, if I may,
yeah,
I do just want to get back to what make a similar point to what Ethan said a few minutes ago, that for our last few minutes here, I do want to make it clear that we're here to talk about the performance dashboard, which is really a tool that's supposed to display region-wide and system-wide performance. It's not so much a tool that shows individual projects, evaluates individual projects, scores individual projects. This is something that is supposed to show how the region is doing in the areas of safety, congestion, our transit assets, et cetera, many of which are required of us by the feds to report on, with some leeway to add additional metrics that we find pertinent to you all, to the board, and to what others want to see. So basically what I'm trying to say is this dashboard is really supposed to kind of give like a snapshot and update it over time on how the region is doing.
Right.
And of course, the way I introduced this maybe wasn't clear with this discussion question. Basically, yes, perhaps there could be a tool that shows where TIP projects and other projects are happening. And that might shed light on, say, why safety outcomes are improving, or where they might be getting worse, and where maybe there's a lack of projects in a certain area, and that's why performance might need improvement in a certain area, right? So this is mostly to show region-wide, transportation system-wide performance on a certain set of areas.
Okay, well, I see what you're getting, but then when you said areas within, and I was presuming those areas are within the region, then it kind of breaks down as to whether it's like we're looking at the whole region, or we're looking at areas in the region. Because once we start breaking it down to areas in the region, then it seems like mapping projects onto the whole region will give us some insight as to what benefit we have from each set of projects that we select. Because if it's always just region wide, I guess then the question is, how is it we can tease out what effect that we're having, because, well, anyways, I'll just stop and think through my thoughts some more. And I also want to stop because I see John's hand up. John?
Yeah. I hear you, Sam. However, there are aspects, for instance, in looking at the region, congestion. Is congestion worse? Yes, congestion's worse. Now, do we link that back to what some of the causes are, for instance, like some of the regional assets that are underperforming? For instance, the Green Line is a regional asset. And the fact that the slow zones and the undependability of it, among the other colored lines, red, orange and such, are deficient in terms of really being on time or living up to expectations in terms of delivering their folks where they need to go in an expected, amount of time. So people are driving in many cases. So in linking some of those back might help, and also perhaps in identifying having ability to cross-reference whether that Green Line extension or Green Line is underperforming. Is it on budget? Is it on time? Is it complete? No. So that's just something a dimension that might enrich some of those global comments. I'm just might go too far, but there's just too many linkages that are causes and effects that can contribute to it.
Yeah, and I know what you're getting at, Sam. And I guess what I was hoping is that we could go beyond simply what the feds want, and maybe what Ethan, is proposing, is more what we would think of as helpful with respect to us making decisions. Because and this is hopefully not going to come across as slight to you, but I think you get a sense, from the board meetings, that when we get these performance-based measurements, which are pretty much determined by the state, essentially the description is like, well, this is what the state has adopted, and we have adopted, the state's metrics, and so we really just want the board to really sign off on this. We don't see much improvement from year to year, from wherever point to wherever point, and it's less than satisfying. But if that's what the feds want, then we'll give them what they want, and we will try to give you input as to how the dashboard can be better for that. It's because as far as and I'll go back and re-examine what's there. And see how I can just kind of limit the scope of what I'm thinking would be useful to what is required, and give you some more feedback, because I don't know how helpful what we're saying is now, because we've got out of the scope, but anyone else? Yeah. So let me ask you this, Sam. What do you think about the data that's there? I think like the bicycle facilities is interesting. The sidewalk facilities are interesting. I saw the bridge data isn't there. The crash data is interesting, especially with respect to trucks. Do you think that is useful on the site? Should we think of like other things like that could be useful, that or then we have data for the whole region and we can just kind of look at that over time?
Yeah, I think a lot of what's on there now is useful. The only but the downside, and part of the reason for us building a new one, is that that data is not so much they're not things that can be easily updated
Mhm.
from year to year,
Right.
2-year intervals, quarterly, whatever it might be.
Uh-huh.
A lot of work went into making that sort of like one-time snapshot.
Mhm.
And doing that, every 6 months, a year, or whatever the time interval is a lot. It is a huge undertaking. It's more on the scale of like, say all the reporting that went into the needs assessment a few months ago, right?
Yeah.
So basically the dashboard is supposed to be something that can go somewhat into detail on into our reporting on how we're doing as a region and in various policy areas. But yes, that's part of the reason why we're building a new one, is that yes, while this one might be really in depth and fun to play with, it's not easily manageable.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, and we should be, to the extent we aren't helpful now, maybe sometimes like it just takes a couple of times for someone to really appreciate the scope that's being requested, and so like I said, I'm not saying this to be dismissive. It means like if we're not being helpful now, I certainly want to think about it some more and come back at it in a way that will be helpful, because my other comment I think is going to be unhelpful, and that was that as I've started going through the story maps, I see that some of the things that we want to aim for are metrics, and then kind of just like some of the equity stuff. I think it mentioned like tracking that or creating metrics that will help us appreciate the impact on 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 various communities, especially with respect to equity. And I was thinking that would be good for the dashboard, but I say that now with understanding that would not be good for the dashboard, unless we then wanted to add like how is the whole region performing with respect to equity. And I don't think that's one of the things that the feds wanted. But I guess my question to you is that if that was something that we wanted to add, if we did it on a regional level, would that be something you consider adding if it wasn't too labor intensive?
It is. However, I see that I don't believe Betsy Harvey is on this call, but I know that Betsy, our equity planner, is building an equity dashboard, which will pretty much do exactly what you summarized, but sort of in a different interface in a different place on our website. So yes, the good news is we're doing that. It's in a different place.
Right. Okay. All right. So I don't know, Sam. I think we're just not being very helpful to you. So I'm sorry.
No.
yeah,
You all have been
yeah.
plenty helpful. I appreciate the feedback, and like you said, it's better that we think outside the box on these meetings rather than keep ourselves within some sort of perimeter. So
Right. Well, like I said, give it some more thought. If you have some more ideas about how we might be able to be helpful based on our attempts here, let me know. Certainly, certainly, what will happen is well, not certainly, but I imagine at some point you will come back and either show us what you're thinking with respect to the new dashboard, or show it to us, and it will be all full of thoughts then, which will probably be out of bounds too, because we'll want stuff that doesn't really fit into it. But sometimes the advice that council gives me is just so at best. So and that's okay. I'm not going to be stellar all the time. So with that, any more questions or comments from anyone? Anyone on the call? Any attendees or any staff? All right. Well, look, I certainly enjoyed thinking about this. I looked at the dashboard more than I had, and I'm impressed, and I understand why what we'll see will be different. But I'm confident that what you produce will be interesting and useful, and to the extent we want more, then we'll find the right place to make that request. So with that, we're gonna move on, and Ms. Taylor, if you want to hang around, you're welcome to do so. Because now I think we're going to move on to the UPWP study ideas. And Shaleka, would you like to say a few words beforehand?
Sure, Lynn. Thank you all for having me today. So this is primarily just a discussion for members to kind of come up with one or maybe more proposals for the UPWP study idea survey that's out right now. And I'll drop the link in the chat momentarily. Just to give kind of a high level preview of what the next couple of months are going to look like. Of course, we haven't presented our timeline to the committee just yet, but the survey closes February 1st. And following that, we'll be presenting versions of the universe to both kind of staff internally to start making decisions, as well as to the advisory council and the committee to work on developing kind of a set of independent studies, that is ideas we get that cannot be done within program work. Kind of building off of the conversations that we'd had in previous years. We're hoping that a lot of the study ideas we get, we can incorporate into our ongoing program work, and whatever is not sort of doesn't fit neatly into those boxes will be considered for kind of independent research. So we're still kind of working out the details of, what that budget is like, what, how many studies we can fund, but that is kind of where we're going to be in March. So with that little preface, I'm really looking forward to your thoughts and whatever study ideas or concepts you come up with.
Thank you. So, anyone have some ideas? Want to share with Shaleka and the group? Okay. Well, once again, John McQueen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we could revisit, I think, a couple of the last 2 years worth of UPWPs. I think there were some questions or studies that didn't, I guess they were semifinalists or quarterfinalists, but they didn't make it, but they were still relevant. They might be still relevant today. And I think maybe more so with some of the resiliency studies. I think it was evacuation routes or things like that that were on the last one that got, I think, to the quarterfinals. The resiliency is, to me, surfacing much higher, I think, on the need to know list and need to act on list, and to get more understanding of what our inventory is of things to fix or actions that might work. I think are important. I think we're coming off of a dark ages, I think, in terms of attention to the resiliency issues. So we've got a lot of catch up, I think, to do. And second, yeah, there were some others in terms of transit issues, which I think are still items that we need to, since it's becoming more important in terms of what our future system is going to look like, to get more, I guess, knowledge of some of the either tools that we have, are they working? Or for instance, I think it was a fair, universal fair question, I think, that was in last year or the year before, that got to the quarterfinals. That's rubber to the road stuff that can impact ridership and the attractiveness of transit, to make it really kind of more of a one-seat ride, especially if it's universal, or a one Charlie card ride. So that's really that. And I guess if there are some items, this one might be prohibitive because of the equipment costs that would be involved, but that's for the state, and then Charlie Baker was going to test it anyway, but he didn't. And that's with testing DMUs or EMU. I guess it might be now EMUs, but in terms of let's say the Framingham line and with Grand Junction and things like that, testing the effectiveness and the acceptance of it, of DMUs, bringing people, giving them more travel options, frequency options, reverse commute options. How are they, what's the dynamic with those? And I think that's an important thing to supplement as we move closer to the I-90 and West Station completions, perhaps, or starting them and then getting them completed in maybe 5 years. But to have some information on that and maybe even get them implemented on some of the lines to help out if they prove positive. So.
Great. Thanks, John. I mean, actually, I was thinking along those lines with what you said at the beginning. I mean, like looking at previous universes and seeing what's in them, it might be relevant. I mean, and so I was planning to pull up, especially the last one, which had a whole bunch of studies in it, and getting a sense as to whether they can be tweaked to move on, and maybe having some conversations with relevant people to find out, like, why is it that study didn't move on past a certain point. Now, certainly when they get to be the finalists, it's really a matter of us like trying to figure out how much we have to spend and how effective we can spend. So you could make the argument that anything that was a finalist that didn't get chosen, you could probably tweak it, a little bit, if necessary. And unless there's something else better in the upcoming universe, it might just make it, so I think it's incumbent upon us to go and find those studies, as opposed to just saying, well, look in the universe, past universes. And I'm happy to work with anyone to do that. Franny?
Yeah, I have to say I agree with the idea of going back and looking at the ones that weren't done. I've always been a big fan of, I'm just speaking to ideas for studies right now, Srileka. Is that reasonable? Is that what we're doing? Studies of certain corridors that cross regions. Yesterday I was at a meeting, a sort of summit it was run by 495 Metro West and Kate Hogan, a legislator. And one of the speakers was the administrator from the Metro West RTA, talking about the Nee is his last name. I can't remember his first name. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay.
Thanks.
And he was talking about the sort of connective tissue between the east-west, that we really need that north-south connection, that we're always going east-west in and out of the city. And we need that north-south connection in terms of transit that parallels 128, that parallels 495. And I've been for years hearing about needs for transportation between Lowell and Framingham and spots in between where there are a lot of employers. So doing a study of the needs along that corridor, and I'm sure there's other corridors that other people would look at that are that just aren't covered right now. I just think would be a good thing to look at. Another piece that I would love to see looked at is airport travel. The Massport, if you look at the locations of the Massport lots, and then you look at the Route 2 corridor, where the train is, which isn't as useful as the Massport buses in getting to the airport. You see a big blank sort of in there. And I feel like there ought to be a Massport airport lot somewhere in that blank. You know, you up north, you see the Woburn one, and south, you see the Framingham one. In between, there isn't one. And I think there's a lot of challenges with airport travel from that region. So those are two things that I would love to see studied at some point. Sort of.
And
Yeah.
just to add, you know, I'm coming back to you, John. But just my thinking is that this is like our first workshop where we maybe put out some ideas, you know, and then as you know, the more substance we give to an idea, then the more likely that can move forward. And so it really didn't become a matter of whether we as a council put forth developed ideas, or whether by virtue of discussing, you know, things amongst ourselves, us as members and residents, can put forth ideas on our own, you know, so you're not locked into only submitting study proposals through this group. John?
Yeah, thanks. I was actually, that was one of the items I was going to bring up, Franny. I don't know how it could be studied with the UPWP unless it was just desires of people that are frustrated that there aren't those assets. But I was going to bring that up and I still probably will, with the long range transportation plan, LRTP. And this is something we've struggled with for decades, which is the circumferential aspect of travel. Once you get even within what was started as the urban ring, that was a circumferential attempt to try and, you know, get some more connections versus the hub and spoke. And for instance, let's get for your Metro West, let's get a 1-seat ride to Lowell, so that you can get to that hospital if you prefer that one versus or need to for a specialist, or a 1-seat ride to, you know, Andover, something like that. But just getting the circumferential where you don't have to, if you're going to take transit and do it by transit, you're not going to have to get on 2 or 3 different trains and have to go into the city and come back out. So those are, in order to make the transit goal and the reduction of personal vehicle miles goals achieved, you're going to need to have some kind of circumferential assets and abilities, in my mind, to make those achievable and attack congestion. So anyway, thank you, Franny.
And to re-piggyback off of you, a comparison of the pros and cons and costs, including everything, costs and economic and housing and etc., of the North-South Rail Link versus South Station expansion would be a very useful thing right now to study.
All right. You know, I'm going to do a quick time check with Stella before I say anything more.
I think we have plenty of time here, Len.
Okay. All right. Just let me know when I really need to move on to the next item. So I'm going to just whip out some ideas that I have. As I said, these are just ideas. In order for them to move forward, they need to be more fleshed out. You know, so I say this, but I know I'm going to need to check back with Logan Casey on it, to understand whether it is something good to try to move forward with this year. I thought his car sharing proposal last year was just really, really good, and I know that Arlington is becoming increasingly interested in it. but it's probably thanks to me. But still, when I talk with people, I don't get the sense that they're just like nodding their head like, yeah, Len. I think they're really enthusiastic about it too. And would like to see us try to do something. I like to see a study that's not just for Arlington, of course, but just see the extent to which we could do more car sharing across the region, because I think it's just such a good way, to make our transportation system more equitable, more efficient in terms of resources, and even more climate friendly, based on, because the presumption is that these would be electric vehicles. So I'd like to revisit that, but once again, I want to check with Logan to understand if that's a good thing to move forward with, and maybe he's moving forward with it on his own, which would be happy to support. Something that I'm interested in us exploring, is the effect of EVs, on roadways, because I recently was informed, that EVs just weigh more, than what do they call them? There's a term for gas-powered vehicles, and like significantly more, and so weight has a big effect, on the roadways. So I think to the extent it is an issue, it'd be good for us to know the extent to which that is a possible issue, and to see the extent to which we can be proactive about it. The next idea is TNCs and the Future Curb Part 3. I think I actually got this idea from reading the story maps, because I think one of the issues was on the effects of TNCs, and the negative effect that they're having with respect to climate, and also I think with respect to mobility too. So it would be good to understand how we can maybe fit TNCs into the curb in a way that would work well with freight, and public transit, and help us maybe regulate the extent to which they are used. I see a couple of hands up. I'm going to come back to you. I'm just going to spit out the last two that I have, and then I'll be content to shut up for the rest of the time. The third is, or the fourth is flexible bus routes. I think it'd be good to maybe do Stephen Andrews, who pretty much did the first version of this based on our last UPWP presented, at the last MPO meeting, and I may update that in new bit in the chair's report, but consider this part of that now. And so I asked him if he thought it would be a good idea to do phase 2 of that, but that just turned out to be an awkward question. So I'm going to put it out there and maybe swing back around to someone on staff to see if now's a good time to move it forward. I think maybe if staff thinks it's a good time to move forward, they'll just put it out there in the universe itself. So maybe, I don't need to do anything more. And the last would be maybe a next phase of roadway pricing. We did a first phase of that. I thought that had some really interesting conclusions, or generated some good discussion. And so maybe we can incrementally push that idea further a little more, maybe coming up with various scenarios, especially scenarios that really focus on the equity side of trying to develop a roadway pricing scheme. So John?
We're on the same wavelength there. In fact, today I was going to look up the weight of a EV and compare it to a similar sized car in terms of, and then trying to project its amount of degradation to the road per mile, so to speak, which needs to be, we need to revise how do we capture those expenses and plan for state of good repair. Can't do it even with the budgets and the mechanisms of grass taxes that we have, and especially we're going to be able to do less of it with as the population of EVs grows, because they're not going to be paying a gas tax. So that also is linked to the, I guess, dirty word, but I think it's a sensible term, which is VMT. vehicle miles traveled as a mechanism, or the primary mechanism, let's say, for funding transportation, road transportation, for instance, and roadway investments. And then also a way to spin off and have, let's say, the roadway users subsidizing or paying for investments of the transit to increase the state of good repair on that, which I think has been part of the whole VMT concept for the last 20 years, but people have been chicken to implement it because of everyone's paranoia of privacy and things like Big Brother. But I think it's making more and more sense. And at least we had plans to pilot that. I don't know how you do that in this state with the vehicles, but maybe it would be in the western part of the state. But we got to get more learning and possibly even implement VMT. That's my point of view. But anyway, thank you, Len.
No, thank you. And thanks for everyone dropping in chat in ISIS. Yeah, I'd actually thought of that before I started the chat, but I appreciate you putting it in there because normally my memory wouldn't work that well. Franny.
I'd love to see a study related to what was just spoken about, comparing the effects of having smaller vehicles like van size versus the small bus vehicles that are doing paratransit in a lot of the suburbs. When we were thinking about a vehicle to apply for, there were pros and cons I could see based on lift versus ramp going into the vehicle, and a 5-person vehicle versus a 12 or 16, whatever it is. And a lot of times, at least in our area, I haven't looked in all areas, there are only 1 or 2 people on these big paratransit vans at once. And I feel like there's a lot of wasted gas and clunkiness. And it would be a really good study to compare both electric to non-electric and the different styles on many pieces of data.
I just want to be clear. Like I'm very pro-electric. And I think because I think the benefit to the climate is pretty clear. And so I think what we need to look at, what are the trade-offs, especially as we hopefully transition to a situation where the batteries can become smaller. The technology is going to get better, and the batteries will hopefully get smaller soon. But it may be one of these cases where you might want to have a smaller battery, in the vehicle. It may have a shorter range, but that range may be sufficient for a dense urban area. So you have a smaller battery, less weight on the road, and less damage to the road, So
to be clear, I wasn't talking smaller battery. I was talking smaller vehicles versus the 12 or 16-person vehicles versus the 5-passenger vehicles.
Oh yeah, no, I got that. No, this was just this was an additional idea, it wasn't in contrast to yours, or in opposition anyway, So John.
Yeah, in terms of lighter EVs with lighter batteries as they might be developed, it still kind of begs the question in terms of funding the system to make it a good repair, and also funding the modes that we want to emphasize for our overall system. And I think the more there are EVs, they're not going to be using the gas to fund. There would be no gas tax that they're going to be paying, which is bad because that one's going to dry up. And again, the VMT concept is more or less, as let's say Chris Dempsey has professed it to be for a decade. It's more like an electricity meter on your house.
Right.
It's directly based on your usage in terms of what you would pay in terms of a tax or fee or whatever. It's not dependent on the amount of gas. It's dependent on your miles you use, and that can be scaled by the type of vehicle you have, which, let's say a commercial truck might have more degradation ability or capacity for versus a Prius to a road. So anyway, I'll get off of that. We just need to get legislators to have a little more courage.
Well, I mean, and I agree about the VMT, and I think it's worth studying, and especially through an equity lens, where we try to price things so that people who have low income, but then are forced to live far away from their jobs, then aren't paying more because they are poor, because they need to use the streets more, so but we have the ability to figure that out. It's a policy thing. Go ahead.
They're still paying for gas. They're still paying for a car. I mean, it's not like it's free for them.
Right.
It's not as though they're charging. There might be for them, there also might be ways to scale based on let's say a poverty level income or AMI.
Right.
So it's a lot of things that can be done if it's done on VMT, and you're anonymous basically to the world. They can do that. Microsoft told us they can do that. So anyway.
Well, I'm hearing some interesting ideas. So I think maybe in our next workshop, we can flesh these out, and I'll let you know if the agendas are looking pretty stacked and we won't be able to fit in a workshop, because that just means that those of us who kind of want to work on this, outside of a meeting, can do so over email or whatever, and flesh something out to present to the group. Or as I said, as individuals, we can propose study ideas too. So if we're ahead of schedule, we're going to move on. If we're behind schedule, we're definitely going to move on, unless someone else has something to say. All right, so we'll move on. And at this point, we're going to do the LRTP, part of the meeting last, so for the chair's report, and I indicated a little earlier, we did have a report from Stephen Andrews about the flexible bus routes, and it was interesting because I was initially thinking that would be mostly about studying flags, making parts of routes flag stops, but this one actually had deviations in the bus route, and it was a very well done study. The design of it I thought was really pretty elegant, and so if you want to know more, the report is on the MPO's website. If you go to the calendar for the last week's meeting, you can download the report. And so this is part of, I consider my responsibility of letting you all know when we see the results of studies that were in the UPWP. If I need to do more to get that to you, let me know. Yeah, I'll even email it to you if you want, but just let me know, because I don't want to go through those efforts if it's not necessary. So there was that, and then I am on the steering committee for the development of the transportation, the travel demand model, the new version of that, and I told the board that we saw a little glimpse of it in action, a new model in action, where Marty Milkovich, who's leading it, showed us the results of some exploratory modeling, and it's really pretty impressive. And I can't I'm really struggling with understanding this model. I've done biological models, but this is just a whole another beast, and I kind of I didn't quite sum up or explain what had happened with respect to my providing Marty with questions. I was just trying to be pretty quick at the meeting. And so this is my chance to kind of clear it up. It wasn't so much that I gave Marty like 100 questions. It was more that I gave him my bare notes, of having read through the high level document and the validation document. More so I wanted to prove to him that I actually read them, because he's been offering to help me understand things. And I said, let me just read stuff. So I read it, and this was like my attempt to prove to him that I read it. And Marty, being the generous person he is like, well, man, let me go through and answer these questions. But really, it must be like 100, notes in there, things that I need to check up on myself. But it's just a testament to how helpful he wants to be, and also a testament of like how much I'm really struggling with this. But that's when you're really learning. And so he's gonna write up some more documents, and I'll read those. And hopefully, with time, I will have picked up more of it. But this is all leading to it is a hope of mine. I'm not going to promise it, but that I will be able to write up something that will make it easier for people who have some experience with models like I do to understand this model, but also people who like model. Isn't that something that walks down a runway? Help them like understand like what this is all about, how it works, and explain it on a very fundamental level. That's my goal, because I think in the process of doing that, I'll even understand it better. But once again, I'm not making any promises on this, because this just might be way more, might require way more time than I have. But that's my report. So any questions? Oh, I see a hand clap out of Franny. Franny, you know what? That hand clap makes me want to like write that document for you. And so we'll see what happens. So I think with that, we can move on to the approval of minutes if we have a quorum.
I believe we still do.
Okay. Cool.
Yep. So
Right.
these are the September 13th meeting minutes posted to the calendar for today.
So I need a motion to approve the minutes and second them, because we know that they're good. And we know that if some later on in time you read them again and you discover an error, we can correct the error. So John.
I move that we approve the minutes.
Thank you. I got a second?
Come on, Franny.
It's been
Well, I
Jesus
failed to read
Christ.
them. I will second.
it's
And I'm
been the
going
first.
on Len's comment that I can.
You can
back
correct. Yeah.
Yes, and actually, I believe that if you trust your fellow voters, that you can vote on minutes if you weren't there.
Yeah.
But maybe not if you didn't read them and you weren't there. And no, I was there. It doesn't matter. I'll second.
It's been the Osmond and McQueen show, so it continues on, so it's Osman, so anyways, so on that motion by John to approve and a second by Franny to second by Franny, and I guess we need to call the roll on this. Stella, please.
All right, Len Diggins,
Yes.
Franny Osmond,
Yes.
John McQueen,
Yes.
I'm gonna bring the roll in the back.
Owen McDonald,
Yes.
and John Seward.
Abstain.
All right. Well, that motion carries.
All right, great. So any old business, new business, member items?
Yes,
Alrighty.
I have
Yeah.
something to say. Tonight, there's something I failed to send around invitations to. So anybody in the Lowell or Lawrence area, which isn't mostly covered by the MPO, is another one of RTAC, RTAAC, which is the Regional Transit Authority Advocacy Coalition. They're having roundtables to help update people on the upcoming legislation about RTAs. I think of it as the RTA Advancement Bill, but it has another name. I think the name sounds like it's RTA Accessibility
Right.
Vote, but I don't know why it has that word. But in any case, our roundtable is 6 to 7:30 tonight. And all I'll say is I can send you the Zoom link if you write to me at Franiola, FRANNYOLA @gmail.com. If you want to attend this roundtable. There was one in Western Mass, there was one in Southeastern Mass. It's a way of getting people to know what their RTA is all about and what this bill is all about.
All right, Brandy. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
All righty. So we're gonna move to the headliner, the LRTP needs assessment, and the goal of this is similar to what it was the first time we did this, 4 years ago, but hopefully with the ability to be a little more, critical in the scientific sense of the word. Not simply consuming information, but actually processing it. With the ability to provide input that can make the next one better, but also me finding gaps that can help us inform what we need to do in this current cycle, and also in a non-critical way. Well, let me rephrase that. In a critical way that is it's positive as positive can be. It's like, how do we take this information and do things with it now, with respect to helping us think about UPWP studies, and helping us select projects, which is what the whole LRT is about in the first place. So with that, I will just open it up to folks to comment as they want on this, and then depending on the time left, I'll tell you some things that I came across while going through it. Okay, let me I probably need to switch a screen here, and I might be a little close to the screen, so I may turn off my camera because no one wants to see me that close up. So first thing I want to say in terms of just navigating the document, so I think the first time that, well, a couple months ago, maybe it's a little bit longer, when Betsy was here, and I was concerned because couldn't generate PDFs as I wanted to. It turns out the ability to generate a PDF is it's a submenu on one of the menus that you see in the horizontal hamburger dots. And so, but since there are embedded windows, you only get some of the information is in the embedded windows. Now, in the summary, the embedded windows are static, meaning that you're not interacting with it like putting layers on a map. And so those actually have the ability to pop out. And so if you get a little frustrated by the fact that every time you scroll down past a table, when you scroll back up to it, it loads up again. If you just do a little pop out, then that remains. And so it's just easier to consume that information. So just if you're being frustrated by that, that's how you can avoid that frustration. So scroll back. And Stella, sometimes I'm going to be on another screen. I won't be able to see if someone raises their hand. So if you could help me out on that, I appreciate it. Okay, so on the first goal, which is about safety needs, I found so table 1 There is the emphasis area on roadway risk, crash factors, and locations. Under the MPO study ideas, I found that further research into understanding crash factors and the causes to be good. Now could that be potentially a UPWP study? I don't know. Initially I think so, but then I kind of like to go back and see, what we've done. Where not only what we've done as MPO, but like there has to be some research that's already been done. And I'm wondering like what new things we might find. Certainly if as we look at the differences between what's happened after the pandemic and what the situation was before the pandemic, we might find something interesting. So to that extent, I think it's certainly worth pursuing. Under that was further use and support of MassDOT's network screening safety analysis to better identify which roadways have highest risk for severe crashes. That's very interesting too. I certainly didn't know about this network screening safety analysis. So I think it'd be worth for us to understand more about that, and certainly encourage more use of that, whether that's through UPWP study or not. So that's under that first what I call goal of safety. So I will stop now and see if anyone has anything they want to say. Brad? All right, keep moving. So under the mobility and reliability needs, the first emphasis area was transit infrastructure condition issues. And so it spoke only about slow zones. And here's where I found some deficiencies, because I think when it comes to transit infrastructure, the power supply is a huge problem. And if you look at the last report from about capital, I think it was just reported to the board of directors, the deficiency in the power system, or let me rephrase this, the nature of the state of good repair is really poor for the power systems. Is like it needs about $5 billion worth of work. And if the power doesn't work, for all of us who have been stuck waiting for trains because we hear some kind of issue with power, either something burning up or just not working, we know that the system doesn't work if the power is flaky. The same with signals. There's a big deficit there. And the stations are also, some of them are in rough conditions. Now I wouldn't consider driver shortage an infrastructure issue, but it's certainly something that feeds into the reliability of the system. And this one I feel a little funny about, but it is one of those things that they can affect the desire of people to use the system. That is like the attractiveness of the stations, to the extent to which they're clean, the extent to which they are inviting and easy to navigate, especially for people with disabilities. Because whereas the elevators may work, if the elevator is like all the way down the track, from where you get out, then that can make it a little less palatable. But there's only so much you can do with the infrastructure that we have. But first, the first two, the power and the signals, I think are a gap that we should emphasize when thinking about how we can make transit better. That said, it is more of an MBTA matter, and all we can really do is support the MBTA in what it wants to do, and maybe since monies are kind of fungible, if we can help them in smaller areas, give some funds, allows them to use those funds in other areas. John?
Yeah, I guess in terms of, well, I had already started to address it before, I think with the circumferential aspect of transit is somebody, there's some background noise. Is that your
That's
end?
me, sorry. That's me, sorry.
That's a problem in terms of the affecting the usage, the ridership, the functionality of transit. Is it meeting people's needs as they really need if they need transit and they're not able to go, let's say one seat from Framingham to Lowell or Fitchburg, that's a problem. It's not gonna change the habits as much as if it's there. And I don't know how you fix it. We've taken the circumferential rails out and made rail trails out of them, by and large, and that's a good thing. But the ability, I guess, of the rubber-wheeled vehicles, transit vehicles, the routes and the jurisdictions, I think, need to be adjusted so that they can have those one-seat rides. I think that's a hurdle or an obstacle to that. It's just everybody's in their own little silo in terms of what's their area of travel. But the circumferential aspect needs to be addressed. It has been for years, and it's not there. And along with that would be an openness to adding other types of, let's say, vehicles that are somewhat considered unconventional. And again, I'll go back to the EMUs and the DMUs as supplementing the commuter rail or subway system in terms of the frequency and flexibility that they might have to carry more people and have more frequency, which is a big obstacle for ridership and on time. So anyway, that's enough for me.
Yeah, thanks, John. I mean, and in respect to the how do you say that word, John? I'm having a circumferential,
Got it. Yeah.
Pathways, that could be under the access and connectivity needs, which is the next goal. And so certainly I want to note that and include it there, but back to the elements about the MBTA on the mobility and reliability needs. There was, on the emphasis area of transit mobility, and there was mention of a current partner study at CTPS, MBTA sources and community value. I wasn't aware of that, and so I want to look into that. And I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I don't mean it in a suspicious way, but it's just something that I heard about, and it was really interesting. And my suggestion too is that we, as an NPO, would support bus network redesign. It's a big deal. And I think it will help a lot of people who have insufficient bus service, get better service. And I often tell my fellow residents in Arlington, because they are complaining because they see it as less bus service for Arlington. And I don't see it as such a drastic reduction as they do, but I also tell them there are areas in the region that really need transit bus service a lot more than we do. You have a lot of employees that are working for businesses in Arlington that don't live in Arlington, and those businesses will be better if those people can get to their places of employment in Arlington. So I think, once again, I think whatever we can do to support bus network design, as long as it's a policy that MBTA is moving forward with, I think it would really help. So, all right, emphasis area. So on mobility and roadways, this is still under mobility and reliability. It says NPO study ideas, investigate the role of the NPO in supporting transit-oriented development. I like that. That could be the potential for another UPWP study. And my addition to that was a follow-up on the congestion management study, which I mentioned earlier. Sorry, it's getting a little active here where I am. On the next goal area, which is access and connectivity. As I said, John, I think that's where we could add your comment regarding the the outer ring, the old outer ring, something like it, that would use rubber as opposed to rail, and that notes a little bit under the goal of resiliency needs, I didn't have anything that really popped out there. I mean, I have a lot of notes, but I put things in bold that I really want to discuss now. But the fifth area, clean air and health community needs. So I find in this one, I think if we focus on this one and all the emphasis areas in it a lot, it was emissions from single occupancy vehicles, SOVs, emissions from freight activities, emissions from rideshare trips, health impacts. I think if we focus on a lot of the initiatives that are in that, with the exception of safety, we can probably, encompass a lot of other initiatives in the other needs areas, and so I would recommend that we, as a advisory council, really examine what was those conclusions, those summaries, and see what we can utilize from there in terms of helping us and help the MPO pick projects and determine policies, and that is going to be something I want to focus on more as we go through the rest of the needs assessment. John?
Yeah, on that, your point when you came to resiliency, I think that sort of speaks volumes right there. Again, the resiliency is so it's been underemphasized in terms of what needs to be fixed, how do we fix, where does it need to be fixed, what's the cost, and it basically, as we're finding, it's not just the coastal areas. There was an article today, I guess, about Governor Healy allocating money for demolishing some of the dams that caused some of the exacerbated some of the flooding from the storms, like in the interior, like in North Andover and such. There's just an array of things that impact everyone. I mean, it's going to, and I don't want to be doom and gloom and that, but it seems from a pattern that climate activity is going to be increasing, and it's going to affect everyone. I mean, equity affects segments. The climate and resiliency is going to affect everyone. And we just need to allocate more to it, to just understanding where the hell we are and what we need to do and what a timeline might be. We might be racing climate change in terms of having a need for people to retreat for some of these areas. But what can we do? And it's within our power. And it's not just greenhouse gas emissions. It's mitigating, let's say, it's finding ways to stop a runaway train, perhaps, or to at least derail a runaway train's damage. So I think we need to emphasize a lot more and allocate more to resiliency, because it's going to affect just about everything up and down the LRTP.
I hear you, and I appreciate you bringing that forward. And I would say let's try to flesh that out some more ourselves, so that we can, make a stronger statement, as to what we feel is missing, and what how we should emphasize this more as we select projects. Now, in my defense, I went past it fast, partly because I want to, make sure that we get out between 4:10 and 4:15. But also, when I said that the fifth goal being the health, let me go back and see exactly what it is. So she's just sluggish here. And no, you just- so the clean air and health community needs. Since that focuses a lot on emissions,
Right.
I think that can help with the greenhouse gases. So that gets more in the preventive side, because we do have to work on prevention. The resiliency is really kind of recovering from the problem that we have from status quo and a future that's going to deteriorate. So I'm not saying that I'm not trying to diminish your concern, John, by any stretch. But I just want to also focus on, if we can prevent, we can do a lot of good.
I'm not, and I wasn't diminishing the importance of greenhouse gas reduction. It's just it's a two-prong
right
issue,
right.
and some of it's already underway.
Right.
That we can't really go back to where the good days were of the climate, apparently. And we almost don't know enough to even ask the right questions. So there was, again, as I referred in the UPWP, the last one, there was a really great question about the evacuation routes, or just at least cataloging where the areas were in the state or in our MPO that were subject to problems. And I think that didn't even take into account what happened over the summer and the fall in terms of flooding in the interior. They were just looking at the coastal areas, not necessarily river areas, causing evacuation routes to deteriorate or go away, like destroying a road. So I think emphasis to find more of the, where do we need it? Where do we need attention? And seriously, what is it going to impact? I don't know what those questions are. There's that one that could be expanded from last year, but that's just another. There are others which are what can MassDOT do to help shore up, whether it's shorelines or the roadways that are under their jurisdiction. I think they've had roadways, in fact, they did in Fitchburg, just get washed away. So, I mean, there've got to be some questions aligned with that. And I defer to the group, I guess, to come up with some of the questions that would help us understand what we're confronted with, so that we can find ways to defend ourselves proactively.
Right.
Okay.
No, that's good. I appreciate it, John. And look, this first section is a summary. And so the other sections will have a lot more detail, based on each of those goal areas. And so I mean, to the extent I think we want to make input on any given area, especially with respect to UPWP study, then probably want to read the study map associated with that area, to get more of what research went into the summary. Because if it's like the last LRTP needs assessment, there is so much more detail in the associated chapters from which the summaries are drawn. And I have to say, just having read the summary, I'm excited about this needs assessment, and what can be learned from going through it. I am content to go through it on my own. I prefer to do it with a group, because I think we will benefit from it. There's nothing like reading to help you really understand stuff, so that we can make more, hopefully more relevant and beneficial comments to the MPO. Sorry, I'm just kind of losing it here because my blood sugar's dropping. But also, I think the benefit I get from talking over with you all is that you will give me insights, that I don't get on my own, and that will help me when I'm on the board, and there's just I think the learning experience is richer. And but I'm not going to force this on the group. As you see, I kind of reworked the agenda, so that we could have this last. So if people aren't terribly interested in it, they can bail out. If we get to a point where we have really stacked agendas, I'm not going to create significantly longer meetings, and I might just say for those of us who are interested in doing it, maybe we just kind of meet, in a separate meeting, and go over whichever sections that we want. But right now, I'm going to try and do another story map number 2, at some point in January, probably. Well, yeah, I guess we only have one meeting. For some reason, I was thinking it's like the MPO, we have 2 meetings. I'll try and do it at our meeting. If our agenda, once again, if our agenda is really stacked, then I'll push it off. There's no urgency on this, and if people want to do some other story map than number 2, just let me know, and then chances are I'm just gonna honor your request, unless there are competing requests, and I'll then get back to whomever and see if we can work out which one the competing parties would prefer to move forward with. So that's that on that. And with that, we're at 4:13, and we've covered everything. So I just need a motion to adjourn, or closing comments on someone else's part. John?
Yeah, just a question.
Sure.
About the emphasis internally within MassDOT, and I guess even, let's say, within DCR, because they control a number of roads too, especially ones that are, potentially vulnerable, shorelines and rivers and such, parkways. The engineers that we have and the design guide that we have, and I don't know if it's been updated since 2007, but is resiliency something that is a baked-in default that they need to factor into any of the road designs or projects that would be coming up, whether it's not just a bridge project, but let's say a roadway project or things like that on a state-owned road? That would be interesting to find out whether or not that's even in the design guide for them to raise red flags, or to even assess the potential implications of a 100-year storm type of thing, which we had last summer.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's all right.
Okay, no, well, I think I know the person to ask, and I think that person would be willing to talk with us about it. If my blood sugar was a little higher, I'd probably be able to pull out his name. It starts with a B, but he he is like one of MassDOT's reps on the board. He's very knowledgeable.
Bernard or who's the?
Yeah, that's a BER. Yeah,
yeah.
You guys don't talk about. Yeah. If I had to bet. Yeah, if I had to bet, I bet a lot of money that they do, but I think we want some detail on that. And so why don't I reach out to him and see if he's willing to have a conversation with us? And maybe what we could do now is maybe also pick that relevant story map as the one that we will take up next. And so I'll work out with Stella whether we have the capacity on the next agenda. As I'm recalling, I don't think we do, so it might be something we'll do in February. But let me just take that as something that we get more information on. We can have a broader discussion about resiliency. Does that work for you, John?
Yeah, I think a starting point would also be somehow getting a copy of the design guide as it stands in its most current form, to just see if it's even in there. I mean, they made some changes in the design guide for bridge projects and rehabilitation of them, as well as complete streets. But I don't know if potential resiliency issues were in there for them to have as part of their evaluations of the situation, the existing conditions.
All right. Well, no, I think we have something to target, so I'll see what I can find on my own, but certainly ask the rep from MassDOT. So thanks for that. Even if it costs us to be a minute over, it was worth it, John. Thank
Merry-
you, everyone.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, everyone. Merry Christmas,
Merry
Happy New Year.
Kwanzaa.
All those
Happy
things.
Happy Hanukkah. You've got a couple more days.
Yeah. So take
And
care,
move-
everyone.
Move to adjourn.
Just holiday wishes all.
All right.
Bye.
This function is a second, so without, ado, or without any opposition, we adjourn.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody. Stella, can you hang around?
Mhm.
Great, thanks.